Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. And I'd say buckle up because we've got a lot to get to on the program this morning. On top of the fact, we're going to be talking with legendary songwriter Don McLean. You, of course, undoubtedly know the song American Pie. Well, we're going to talk with him because he's at the Struthers Library Theater in Warren, Pennsylvania tomorrow on Veterans Day. Speaking of Veterans Day, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our upcoming Veterans Day special here on Fox that I'm very, very proud of, and I can't wait to hear what you think of it. We'll get you those broadcast times and days in just a little bit, but we have some catch-up to do because I received a virtual wave, but we received a lot of great messages after the program yesterday, and I want to get to them. So let's begin, shall we? Frank, local elections are important. In Steuben County, out of 63,000 registered voters, only a little over 13,000 voted. The numbers for Chemung and Schuyler counties are appallingly low as well. If voters aren't going to participate in the process, they shouldn't complain about the outcome or the consequences. Obviously, a great point, and as you will recall, we talked about that almost ad nauseum leading up to the election, even with the candidates themselves, saying, how do we get out the vote? Now, you look at those numbers, and it's discouraging. You look at some of these campaigns where people won or lost by 10 votes. Dozen votes. Sometimes I had one example, I don't have it in front of me any longer, one vote. Now, of course, that could change with absentee and some things that are still being counted, but one vote. But I do, and I agree to this viewer's point, you'll still hear a lot of people complain. And you wonder, did you go in to vote? Especially in an off-year election like on Tuesday, where it wasn't the pomp and circumstance, for lack of a better term, of a presidential, congressional, senatorial, gubernatorial. Did you do the research to find out who your town councilman is, who your city council member is? The answer is most likely, probably, well, no, not you, the viewers in this audience, but most likely the people that are complaining the most are the ones that tend not to tend to only vote, let me word it this way, for presidential. Okay, next. Hello, Frank. I'm catching up with the week and just want to say thank you again for interviewing some of the local candidates. Well, of course, thank you for watching. The past few weeks and months, I want to say that it was especially a pleasure for me to hear from both Allison and Lisa. I was impressed by both and wish them well in their future endeavors, as I'm sure they will continue to pursue their goals and achieve success. Yes, I'm sure they have obviously bright futures ahead of them. Both tough races for Allison and Lisa, but you can't take anything away. We mentioned this on the program, I think on Tuesday and Wednesday. Just the process of running and also putting your whole heart into it, like those two did. You can't take anything away. You got to hold your head high after that. No matter win, lose, or draw, it's honorable to put in the work and the effort that they did. Next up, as for the Hillary piece, we talked about this yesterday, where Hillary compared former President Trump to Hitler. Full disclosure, I'm not a Hillary fan by any means, and it's laughable how they spin things and use wordsmithing to suit their narrative. Democracy is what we should all embrace and not misconstrue its meaning over and over again. She should know what, quote, what went wrong is, that you can't insult a large part of the voting population, the deplorables, of course, and expect to be successful. As commander-in-chief, let alone dismissing the Benghazi attacks because, quote, what difference does it make? It makes a huge difference. Another great point. Yes, the insulting of, well, what turned out to be a very large section of the voting population. And finally, just a comment about the debate. I didn't have the stomach to watch, fair enough, but have seen some clips. And again, I take pause when a certain network and talking heads are clearly promoting a certain female Republican candidate. It is very interesting, and I appreciate that comment because it's a comment that I've made. I've got to say, and I know I always put this disclaimer on it, that I don't dislike Nikki Haley. I just say there's always red flags when the people that don't want to see Republicans ever win tell us that that's the only way we can win. It's just something that raises a red flag. That's all. So again, it's not to knock Nikki Haley. We've seen it too many times. We've seen the only way we can win is Bob Dole, is John McCain, is Mitt Romney. And then they almost snuck through the Jeb Bush. So there, we played catch up. Stay with us. It is going to be a busy morning. And Don McLean coming up in just a little bit. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. Apologize for that. I see that you got a little behind the scenes action and the mic wasn't working. It didn't go to break for some reason, but finally it did. Technical difficulty corrected. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. I told you about, and I really am, I don't want to keep, I don't know if it almost sounds like bragging, but I wanted to tell you how proud I am of this show. Big Fox Veterans Day Special. Those are the times. Please write them down. Don't miss this. This is for veterans. It's for family members of veterans. It's also for those of us in the community that just want to say thank you to those who gave so much for us. Now, the Veterans Day Special is brought to you by our friends at the Hilliard Corporation and Carapella's Collision. So I know I've talked about it a lot. You'll see the ads. I'll probably bring it up again at the end of the show. But again, we have what a lineup. I think we have a total of 5 guests, all experts in their field. So make sure you catch us one of those days. I'm the host. I am by far not an expert. Okay. Sad note. Locally, I just wanted to give you an update. I know that many of you saw the heartbreaking news out of Tioga Downs, where the stable or the barn, an occupied barn burned down. Authorities have now taken a suspect into custody in connection with suspected arson at Tioga Downs, which killed several racehorses, over 24 racehorses, according to harnesslink.com. According to New York State Police, the fire investigation determined the blaze, quote, was set as an act of arson. Boyd H. Fenton, age 32 of Athens, Pennsylvania, has been arrested. He's been charged with arson in the 3rd degree, Class C felony, burglary in the 3rd degree, Class D felony, criminal mischief in the 2nd Class D felony, and assault in the 2nd degree, Class D felony. An investigation revealed that Fenton entered the barn and intentionally set a fire, causing thousands of dollars worth of damage. Fenton was arraigned before a judge this afternoon, meaning yesterday, and intentionally set a fire, and remanded to the Tioga County Correctional Facility. The photos, heartbreaking. But I want to give you an update if you had not heard. So, how am I doing on time? Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Elise Stefanik has something to tell us. We're also going to be talking about a lot about Israel, anti-Semitism, presidential race. We're just getting started. Oh, yeah, and did I mention the legendary Don McLean is going to be in? So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I want to quickly bring this to your attention. I've been meaning to mention it all week. There's a flu COVID vaccine clinic at Elms Chevrolet in Elmira on Monday, 9 a.m. till 1 p.m., offering the flu and COVID vaccination to individuals 18 years of age or older. Pre-register, encouraged. There you go. There's the number on the bottom, or on the middle of your screen, I suppose. 607-737-4499. Please bring a copy of your insurance card, front and back, with you. Walk-ins, though, are welcome. So mark your calendar for that on Monday. Okay. Elise Stefanik has filed a judicial complaint against Judge Arthur Engeron for inappropriate bias and judicial intemperance. I received, this is actually breaking news. I received this just moments ago in email from Chairwoman Elise Stefanik. She filed a judicial complaint with the New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct against Judge Arthur Engoron for his inappropriate bias and judicial intemperance, and Democrat New York Attorney General Letitia James' disgraceful lawsuit against President Donald J. Trump and the Trump Organization. She released a statement. The letter is well cited. It is well researched. I'm sure you'll see that in the news. But she had this to say about the complaint. Americans are sick and tired of the blatant corruption by radical leftist judges in New York. All New Yorkers must speak out against a dangerous, weaponized lawfare against President Trump. So that is about as breaking of news as you can get. Received that just moments ago. Also yesterday, what did you think when you heard that Senator Joe Manchin is not going to run for re-election next year, 2024? Now, a lot of things raced through my mind. When I say a lot, I mean one thing. Is he going to run for president? No Labels has been trying to court him into running. No Labels is a group that believes if they could have a Democrat, in this case, running for president, and a Republican as vice president, or moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans, that they have a chance at winning the White House as a third party. That's their thought. There's been a lot of anger at that thought from various political factions. Democrats don't like it. Republicans don't like it. But we don't need to get into all that. But the moderate Democrat from West Virginia made his intentions known in a video he posted on X, formerly known as Twitter. Instead of running for a fourth term, the 76-year-old said he will travel the U.S., quote, travel the U.S., bing, 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 to see if there's an interest in creating a movement to mobilize the middle and bring Americans together. Manchin, who was the deciding vote for last year's landmark Inflation Reduction Act, has refused to rule out a third-party run for president in 2024 as a nominee for No Labels, a centrist political group for what they call, quote, the politically homeless. Now, this is why you start to see anger at Manchin. There's always a lot of anger at Manchin. But his decision likely hurts Democrats' chances of maintaining their narrow majority in the Senate. So Joe Manchin not running for re-election. Now, I know we're going to go through a lot this morning. We're jumping all over. I'm not even going to try to segue these topics. There's just no way. And by the way, reach out at any point. Weigh in. What do you think? Do you think, one, will Joe Manchin run for president? Or two, do you like the idea of Joe Manchin running for president? I know we've had some recently, quite a few comments about we don't want to see Biden, Trump, as one person said, these old people, running. We want new blood. Now, just fresh off the ticker, a comment from a viewer. Too bad Joe Manchin is one of the better unifying Democrats. There you go. So weigh in on that and any other topic we discuss. I do have to take another break because I want to get to Don McLean. Don McLean, who's known, he's had a lot of hits, but of course American Pie is essentially a standard, is I would say arguably one of the most famous songs of all time. He's going to be joining us because he has a show coming up in Warren, Pennsylvania tomorrow. So Don McLean is going to join us on Frankly Speaking after this short break. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are being joined by the legendary Don McLean. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on your show.
I've got to say, first and foremost, congratulations on the Music City Walk of Fame, because you got in with our mutual friend, Duane Eddy, who was born right here in Corning, New York.
Well, I just love Duane. He was on several tracks of an album called Love Tracks.
Mm-hmm. He's a great guy, isn't he? Yes. That's wonderful.
He really is.
Now, we're going to be talking about your upcoming show on November 11th, Struthers Library Theater in Warren, Pennsylvania. But before that, I understand that you released a Christmas album, Christmas Memories, remixed and remastered. There's so many great Christmas songs. How do you pick the track list?
Well, I got to find ones that I can sing.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
I've got to like the song.
Sure. Do you have a favorite Christmas song on that album?
Winter Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
Santa Claus is coming to town.
Okay.
And White Christmas.
Of course, White Christmas. Now, when
But
you're...
I like the version of Blue Christmas because it goes in and out of major and minor.
Okay. Now, it's got to be an interesting experience as we near Christmas that you could be sitting around the Christmas tree listening to your own music.
Well, I have about 5 Christmas trees in my house. So I have to do a lot of sitting.
Yes. And you can buy an autographed copy now at donmclean.com. So you've got this upcoming show. Let me ask you this simple question. What is a typical Don McLean concert like?
I sing the American Songbook.
Okay.
I do my songs.
Mm-hmm.
I do other songs that I've recorded by other people.
Okay.
And, crying.
Mm-hmm.
Since I Don't Have You, Castles in the Air, Vincent, American Pie.
Of course.
And I Love You So, these kind of things.
And, of course, you mentioned that seminal song, American Pie. Did you know, I don't think there's any way you could know, that 50 years later it would be the powerhouse that it still is, being in movies and TVs, etc.?
I never thought about anything. I never thought about the future. I never was worried about what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept putting one foot in front of the other.
Well, what was it like for you when it hit, when you had that experience that you knew that this was a major, major song?
It was fun for about 2 weeks. And then it became a whole new way of life.
Sure.
Because you're not a person anymore.
Oh, that's a good
You're
point.
certainly not the person you were.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you...
People treat you differently, and they don't tell you the truth.
Sure.
They say everything's wonderful,
Yeah.
and it isn't.
Right.
So...
That's interesting. Now, do you think today, in 2023, that a 8.5-minute song could be a hit?
I think it could be a rap song.
Oh, sure.
I think if rap music would stop rapping and come to a chorus once in a while, that they might have a lot, a crossover into a whole other world.
Sure. And are you surprised that you have had such an influence on rappers and specifically American Pie being sampled so frequently?
Well, there's that, and there's the Drake song "Do It Wrong"
Mm-hmm.
that used 2 of my songs.
Right.
And then there's the Tupac Shakur "Love of Vincent" and my other work as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it thrills me.
Yeah. Do you, when you hear that there's a cover or, like I said, a rapper using some of your music, what does that feel like to you? Because I got to imagine your songs are kind of like your babies, right? So does it bother you?
They're out there,
Yeah.
and anything can happen to your babies.
Sure. Well, that's true.
They're living their life.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Now, another recent part of your life is the movie The Day the Music Died, the story of Don McLean's American Pie. What does that feel like for you personally to have a movie dedicated to you and to your song?
It's a really good movie for people who are interested in me and the song.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really documents my journey throughout the 10 years before I recorded the song.
Right.
And that's the most important 10 years of my life.
Mm-hmm. And that can be found at Paramount Plus, The Day the Music Died, the story
Yeah.
of Don McLean.
Yeah, you can buy it on Amazon.
Oh, okay. Purchase it on Amazon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you can find out more at donmclean.com. So we mentioned that you're Music City Walk of Fame, obviously Grammy Award honoree, Songwriters Hall of Fame. Is there one of the awards that you've received that is the most special to you?
Well, they're all special.
Sure.
You know. But the Musicians Hall of Fame, and which was this year as well,
Mm-hmm. Oh, right.
was really a big deal because the people in it were the major people that built the Nashville music scene.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
that was a real honor for them to include me.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously, we talked about the Christmas album, the movie. You've got the concert coming up at Struthers Library Theater, Warren, Pennsylvania on November 11th. So what's next for Don McLean?
Well, I've got a few more shows,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to sing for a couple of nights in Hawaii,
Oh, very nice.
and then I'm taking a few months off. And then I'm going to be on a romance cruise.
Oh, very nice. Now,
Yeah, looking forward to it.
yeah, that sounds great. So it sounds like you stay very busy.
Yeah, and then I relax a lot. I got to get myself back together again.
Sure. Okay, now I'm going to ask you, just before we wrap up, two very, very corny questions, and I admit it right from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
Are you only allowed to drive Chevys?
I've just got a GMC truck, so that's as close to a Chevy as I've ever had.
Is that right? Oh,
I like this truck.
Yeah. Okay, and the final corny question. American Pie,
Yeah.
such a legacy, such an amazing song. But come Thanksgiving, what is your go-to pie?
What's my go-to pie?
Yeah.
Well, I have two favorites. Lemon meringue made right, and pumpkin.
And pumpkin, of course. Well, see, there you go.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for letting me lose my credibility with those last two questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I hate mincemeat.
Okay, there we go. Well, Don McLean has been our guest again. Struthers Library Theater, Warren, Pennsylvania, November 11th. Thank you for being on the show today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. Bye. We'll be right back with Frankly
Bye,
Speaking
bye.
after this. Stay with us. Well, there you go. Wasn't the smoothest, but you got to see the full interview. Don McLean, thank you. I wanted to play. It was corny. The questions to the end, so you got to see the best right there at the end. All right, we do have a lot of news to get to. We're having fun this morning, if you can't tell. A couple quick comments that I received on the break. Here we go. Not the break, the right break. This is nice. The people are reaching out during the show. You can see the number on the bottom of the screen. That arsonist killed defenseless horses, locked in their stalls, and hundreds of thousands in damage. Hope they throw the book at this guy. That's a very good point. A lot of people just heartbroken at that tragic loss. Here is another comment. God bless Don McLean. American Pie is one of my favorite earworms. Absolutely. Don's an American treasure. Well, there we go. All right, now back to the news. Did you see yesterday? I've got so much to get to. Israel has agreed to 4-hour daily humanitarian pauses in fighting. The president, Joe Biden, has been calling for pauses. He can't say ceasefire. Many people are saying that it's essentially calling for the same thing. Senator Jeff Merkley had, I guess you would say a troubling reaction. He said, we basically said the best way we can help Israel towards a future of peace is to always know we have their back. They'll do the right thing. But now we have seen what has transpired in the West Bank with the daily de facto annexation through highways and settlements and outposts. We've seen that the despair has bred violence. We've got to be engaged towards a better future. Again, if you're just joining us, Democrat Senator Merkley. Listen, Israel says they're trying to alert people about buildings, but understand What it looks like on the ground is that Israel is no longer doing the double tap, which is essentially a big firecracker that you put off over a building before you bomb it. And they're saying, but we make calls. And I'm going to skip, he rambles on here essentially. But so there's been a huge mortality of women, children, non-combatants. And it is a significant pause needs to be held to rethink all of this, essentially a ceasefire. And we have to be part of that. Our supply of both financial aid and military aid makes us a partner in this. We're in a period of transition where before we basically said, let me slow that down. We're in a period of transition where before we basically said the best way we can help Israel towards a future of peace is to always know we have their back. They'll do the right thing. But now we have seen what has transpired. Troubling. Very, very troubling. Did you see out of New York City, hate crimes against Jews have skyrocketed by more than 200% amid the Israel-Hamas war? And the community, being quoted, is obviously anxious. Bias crimes in the city increased by 124% in October compared to October of 2022. Police counted 101 bias incidents in New York City in October, up from 45 last year. Leading the surge was a spike in anti-Jewish incidents, of which 69 were reported last month in the city compared to 22 in October of 2022. That's a 214% increase. And the New York Post editorial board had this take on it. The gigantic rise in anti-Semitic incidents in the city in the aftermath of October 7th shows the absurdity of the Biden administration's focus on Islamophobia. And they talk about Islamophobia frequently. It's almost has to be said after they talk about anti-Semitic attacks. And lecturing about the dangers to both sides. Nationally, FBI Chief Christopher Wray told Congress that while Jews make up 2.4% of the U.S. population, they're the targets of 60% of religion-based hate crimes. And that was in normal times. Again, this is the New York Post editorial board. Yes, some scattered idiots have harassed Muslims, and a few utter idiots have targeted Muslims. One deranged man killed a young Palestinian American child. But anti-Semitic violence is plainly a far larger problem. The White House shouldn't be gaslighting the nation about that central grim fact. Yes, we don't want to downplay what is happening. And unfortunately, I have example after example of whether you want to call them hate crime or you want to just, however you want to word these anti-Semitic attacks, heinous anti-Semitic slogans were broadcast on UPenn, University of Pennsylvania buildings. This is the latest disturbing incident at that Ivy League institution, but many Ivy League institutions, as the school now faces a civil rights complaint accusing it of being a magnet for anti-Semites. Jewish billionaire Henry Suica has quit the board at Columbia over what he says is abhorrent threats to Jews on campus. He said the Ivy League's moral cowardice is allowing a blatantly anti-Jewish sentiment to thrive on campus. He said, quote, "To my deep regret, the reputation and integrity of Columbia University, and by extension, Columbia Business School, has been significantly compromised by a moral cowardice that appears beyond repair. This is abhorrent. Any other minority group on campus would never have to face anything close to this level of intimidation and hatred of Jewish and pro-Israel students, what they experience. To sin by silence when they should protest makes cowards of men." That's a great point across the board from Henry Suica. We've got some other examples in the news, unfortunately, when we come back, but stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. You just saw that beautiful view of Marcus Street. That's where we broadcast from. Thank you for all the comments that we've been receiving. I wanted to show you this cartoon. I'm not sure if you heard about this, but the Washington Post censored, essentially, an anti-Hamas, yes, an anti-Hamas cartoon after readers' complaints. This is the Washington Post. As Sonny Bunch said, kind of surprised the Washington Post pulled this cartoon, given that it's a completely accurate depiction of Hamas's tactics. Now, what's interesting is the Washington Post did not, however, take down a cartoon on its YouTube page that depicts an Israeli leader maliciously punching a child. But this is the cartoon in question. How dare Israel attack civilians? And that's Hamas, of course, strapped with children. And it looks like women and children. I'm having trouble seeing it on the screen. So that was censored, taken down, because their readers and it sounds like staff behind the scenes were upset. Now, and you might have saw the headline there, the New York Post said the Washington Post made a huge mistake in killing this cartoon. The Washington Post has apologized in full cringe mode over the cartoon, which the paper published on Wednesday. But the apology is the mistake, not the publication. In it, artist Michael Ramirez makes a powerful point about what's really going on in Gaza. Hamas is using the Palestinian people as human shields while blaming Israel for the result. And it's working. I mean, when you have President Biden calling for days-long pauses, which is a ceasefire, when you see so many in the media criticizing Israel at the PR level, Hamas is winning the messaging. And that's what this cartoon was depicting. Indeed, the terrorists savor every innocent killed as Israel moves to eliminate the terrorist group that slaughtered roughly 1,400 of its civilians, along with mass rapes and the kidnapping of 200 plus hostages it still holds. And it is also using as human shields. Opinion editor David Shipley says the cartoon, quote, was seen by many readers as racist, though the drawing is simply and plainly a caricature of an actual Hamas spokesman who celebrated the October 7th terrorist attack. The paper has pulled the tune off its website and is, quote, also publishing a selection of responses to the caricature. This retreat simply encourages those objecting to a message, in this case, Ramirez's, to cry racism so that they can censor it, and to intimidate anyone who agrees with Ramirez into shutting up, to self-censor. And the New York Post, I thought, was very forceful with their last line. Democracy dies in darkness, which is the Washington Post's motto. We're saddened to see it surrender to the dark side. Let's take another break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Beautiful Friday morning here on Marcus Street in Corning, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Boy, did you see Kevin McCarthy laid it on the line yesterday. We are changing topics because we only have a few moments left with the program, but he was talking about the Matt Gaetzes and the 6, as he called them, disruptors, and said he was particularly surprised that Mace and Tennessee Representative Tim Burkett joined Gaetz in the effort to oust him. He said the Republican Party would benefit tremendously if Gaetz was no longer a member of the House, saying there should be consequences for his action. People have to earn the right to be here. And I just think he'll admit to you personally, meaning Gaetz, he doesn't have a conservative bent in his philosophy and just the nature of what he focuses on. He said that it's up to the conference and the House GOP to consider expelling Gaetz, and added he doesn't believe the conference will ever heal if there's no consequences for his action. Well, in typical Matt Gaetz fashion, he responded by saying thoughts and prayers to the former speaker as he works through his grief. Anyway, I don't want to go through all this, but he's not happy. He also, though, commented on former President Trump, saying, if you look at the numbers, President Trump is stronger today than he was in 2016. President Biden is weak. If you look at the latest polling and you look at those swing states, President Trump is stronger than he has been in the past. Then he said, I don't think Ron DeSantis is doing well. He started out very strong. He's coming down. Nikki Haley seems to be coming on rather strong. I think Tim Scott would be an excellent VP as well, but that's a choice for President Trump, who wins the nomination. Not saying if he wins the nomination, when he wins the nomination. So that's Kevin McCarthy. We're going to take our last break, and then we're going to go through some things very, very quickly. So please weigh in before we go. This is, Frankly Speaking, on Big Fox. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Just wrapping things up here on the program. Again, thank you to everybody who joined us. Got a lot of great comments throughout the program. You can always reach out after the fact, too, if you want to weigh in, and we'll get to it on next week's programs. Democrats grow more confident in their campaign messaging, which is going to be, obviously abortion. This is from the Washington Post, by the way. Abortion, threats to democracy, that Trump is a threat to democracy. But more nervous about Biden. This is Wall Street Journal, excuse me. Isn't that interesting how many articles have been lightly dipping their toe in the water, suggesting that Biden may not be the best choice? Just something to keep in mind, something kind of interesting. Now, Biden was at a rally with UAW, and someone, I guess, in the crowd could be heard kind of stumbling. And Biden briefly paused his speech to ask, "Are you okay?" After an unheard reply, Biden said, "I want the press to know that wasn't me," meaning that wasn't me that stumbled. Yes, the press has been so tough to you, Mr. President. Boy, they like to criticize. I know it's a laugh line, but hoping to get a couple laughs. But for heaven's sakes, has it pretty good in the media. Yeah, his campaign keeps sending letters, like we mentioned yesterday. Quit focusing on the polls that look so bad. I guess. FEC, there's a complaint that alleges a coordinated disinformation campaign from Biden's 2020 run. This is from America Legal First, and this is a piece from Fox News. An alleged campaign finance violation could ensnare Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and 51 former senior intelligence officials who asserted without evidence in 2020 that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. And we recall at that time Hillary Clinton did a lot. So many people on the left, that was their talking point then, is everything was Russian disinformation if they didn't want you to hear it. The evidence suggests that the respondents failed to disclose coordinated expenditures constituting in-kind donations with respect to the infamous Letter of 51. Former intelligence officials claiming the Hunter Biden laptop story had all the, quote, classic earmarks of Russian disinformation. Oh, a whole piece this morning. Speaking as a man, gendered insults at Republican debate highlight a risky strategy. A literal, below-the-belt manhood debate. We had a little bit of that for you yesterday as well. That was, well, they want Nikki Haley for some reason. The media, same people that will never vote for her if she gets the nomination, are really defending her, not propping her up, sounds like she's not doing well, but building her up. The poll suggests DeSantis is done. Jay Cridlin has 5 reasons why that might not be the case. Reynolds' endorsement, Kim Reynolds' endorsement might actually matter. Even in tough polls, there are bright spots. Trump's legal problems aren't going away. At a convention, anything can happen, calling for essentially a brokered convention. That's going to be scary. And the reasoning is, he said, well, look what happened with the speaker's race. Could that happen at the convention? And finally, he's not done padding his resume, meaning he's still doing a lot. MSNBC's reporter, Cornell Belcher, said the GOP's tough talk on immigration is a, quote, camouflage for hate. This idea of being tough on crime or being tough on immigration, being tough on terrorism, there's a fine line between being tough and camouflage for hate. I think they cross that line at the debate when you look at the language about shooting people dead and bombing and wiping people off. That's about being tough. That's not about being tough on terrorists. That is crossing the line and becomes a camouflage for hate. We are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Do not forget, folks, please don't miss this. I know you're going to really enjoy the Big Fox Veterans Day special. It's for our veterans. It's for veterans' families. It's for us in the community that just want to thank our veterans. So I hope that you'll be able to watch that this weekend. Have a great Veterans Day weekend. We'll be back next week with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I look forward to it already.